Congressman, what caught my ear yesterday was I saw you were talking about Joe Sestak and whether or not, in what capacity, this job was offered to him. Was it tit for tat? Was it a bribe? And then, of course, what are the implications of all of this?
Absolutely. As you probably have become very aware, even though people think of it as business as usual to offer a political friend a job, there's a line you're never supposed to cross, and one of them is what they call the quid pro quo. You cannot link some other action, a political contribution, or in this case, giving up a political race in return for a government job. In Illinois, we certainly saw it when the governor was trying to sell a Senate appointment. This is a criminal act. There's at least 3 felonies that are involved, and Congressman Sestak, former Admiral Sestak, very clearly said, I was offered a job if I'd get out of the race, and I was offered by a high-ranking person in the White House. That's enough that Eric Holder should very much have followed up on this with a criminal investigation using a special investigator or special prosecutor. He chose not to, and now it's simply public opinion and people like Dick Durbin of Illinois who are tired of the heat for this not being resolved that are calling on the president and Joe Sestak to bring this to a close.
You may be familiar with what happened here in New York with our governor, David Paterson, and Andrew Cuomo, the attorney general, where after some pressure, he said, look, everything that's been brought up, all the allegations against the governor, I am not the person to investigate. We need to bring in independent counsel, independent investigators. They need to do the work. And that's Cuomo, who ran on his own to become attorney general. Eric Holder is appointed by the president. He is the attorney for the president. And it seems like this is a major conflict of interest.
Well, there absolutely is a conflict of interest when it comes to overseeing the White House, just as the conflict of interest here with the Democratic majority, who see no reason to subpoena these documents. But if this were still the last Congress and we were dealing with President Bush, you'd better believe they'd had subpoenas and demanded that they know all the details of who did it. And in this case, we pretty much know that there's a very high likelihood that it was Rahm Emanuel offering him Secretary of the Navy on behalf of the president. And if they had come out early and said, no, he misunderstood, they might have gotten this behind them. But their silence for over 2 months speaks pretty loudly that they've got a certain amount of whoops on their face.
At what point is the president in too deep? If Rahm Emanuel offered the job, does a prosecutor have to prove that, Emanuel offered him on behalf of the president or that the president knew something?
Absolutely. If Rahm Emanuel said, I did it, I didn't talk to the president, and he sticks to that story, then he takes one for the president. On the other hand, very much like Watergate unraveled for President Nixon, people don't quit until they're satisfied that everybody has either told the truth or paid a price. In this case, I don't believe the president wants to throw Rahm Emanuel under the bus. I don't think Rahm wants to throw the president under the bus. But it's for them to figure out how they respond to very credible allegations of a former admiral in the Navy who has not only said that this happened, but he said if there's an investigation, he doesn't want to answer it to the press, but he says if there's an investigation, he will answer all of their questions. One of the amazing things is there's no investigation because the administration won't allow one, and neither will the Democrats in control here on the Hill.
Now, of course, what you've pointed out is that, this is getting to be like Watergate. It's not just the crime, it's the cover-up.
It's absolutely the cover-up because if Rahm offered him a job and wanted to characterize that he didn't know the law or that he misunderstood or that it wasn't meant to be the way it was, that well could have been the end of it. But they're stonewalling and they're characterizing as Robert Gibbs has done that we've talked to them, we've had lawyers talk to them, but whatever they said wasn't problematic. Well, that leads the public, and including the morning Sunday talk shows, they want to know, well, who was it they talked to, and let us decide whether it's problematic or not. And I think that's where it's going to end, is that ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox are going to have their Sunday morning answer to this question, or they're not going to give up. And that means this thing's gone what they call in the blog world viral, and in the old days mainstream. The networks want an answer, and I believe they're not going to quit until they get one.
Now, Congressman, and you mentioned this yesterday, but now we have the issue of impeachment is on the table, and we see that Dick Morris is talking about it. Other national voices are bringing it up. We need to know what we need to know to make those decisions, and you are somebody who would be involved in that process. So how does this all tie together with what we know, what you know, and the issue of impeachment?
Well, the question of impeachment, I serve on the Judiciary Committee that ultimately would have to bring it. Impeachment is about whether or not the majority of the Congress believes the president has committed a high crime. The amazing thing is, right now, is just like with, if you will, some years ago, if the Democrats continue to control the Congress and they want to cover for their president, there won't even be the beginning of that. On the other hand, the president will pay a political price in November if he hasn't gotten this behind him. So, as a Republican, I'm powerless to force any kind of investigation as to who did wrong in the White House. On the other hand, the American people every day are saying, is this the change we voted for? And the answer is repeatedly no.
Now, Congressman, as you mentioned, if he manages to skirt around the law on this, we wouldn't see true justice, but we would see political justice in the capacity of, when it comes November and then 2012, there seems to be, and you've talked about this, I've seen it on your Twitter and some of those other places, so much voter dissent, be it over the health care bill or these bailouts. It's everything mounting together. And, maybe that's going to be the case is it won't be a judge, it won't be a jury or a hearing. It'll be the voters in November and then again 2012.
I think absolutely in our democracy, rule of law is usually because of fear of the voters. As long as we're going to have another election and the voters can, regardless of their preference politically, they can decide over corruption and misconduct to throw a party out, as many would say they did of the Republicans in 2006, then that's the great balancer. I hope Republicans, of which I am one, that we've learned our lesson, that we're not going to waste the American people's money and we're not going to allow ourselves to slip back into turning a blind eye to corruption, something that we saw happen in the early part of the 2000s. But right now, the American people, I think, are consistently seeing the White House and Capitol Hill doing exactly the wrong under the Democrats that they were so angry about under the Republicans. And that's what elections are for. That's why the election is probably the reason that this administration will be pressured by their own party to find a way to put this behind them in a timely fashion, because the election will put it behind them if they don't.
When I talk, Congressman, to representatives that are outside of this district in this voting area, I like to find out, you of course, are you up for re-election in November?
I am. I was unopposed in the primary, or will be unopposed in the primary in June, and I do have a couple of opponents in the general, as usual.
If somebody here wanted to get involved, of course, they can't head out and vote for you, but maybe they can make a contribution or volunteer some time, notify friends and family. Where do people go? What's the website?
They can either just go to my initials, DEI.com, and there's a link there for ISA for Congress, or they can go to ISA for Congress, and they'll get connections to both ISA PAC, which is my leadership PAC, and ISA for Congress. But they can also follow me. If they go to that site, they'll see where they can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and they can go to the government oversight on the House side and follow us there for the official work we do. And I welcome people to do it. I'm honored to be the top of the Republicans on the committee that fights for transparency in government. We're trying to create an environment in which nobody can hide from the voters.
And maybe you don't see it a lot, the mainstream media, but Republicans like yourself, Eric Cantor comes to mind. You're doing a lot of interesting things online with the interactive social media, that you cut that was there, and Truth in Government and speaking out. It's very interesting to watch all of this.
Well, it's a new generation of Americans who are inheriting this vast debt that really do want to see the kind of change that's only going to come from being able for the American people to object to every single piece of expenditure that's unnecessary. So we're trying to get it out to them, and I appreciate your helping along the way.
Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you for your time and your insight.